Okay, it's 9:10. Let me set this. This clock is a bit weird. Okay. So welcome to Neural Networks class. Okay. This is supposed to be an English class, 就是英文的. Okay. So I'm going to use English for the most part, unless people have problems with the. If you need me to describe in Chinese, that's fine as well. Okay. We have to do this because otherwise they will complain and say we say this is an English course and then we still use Chinese, then that's not good, right? Okay. But I just wanted to put it out there that first of all, okay, language should not be an issue. If you have difficulty with some of the English descriptions, I'm happy to switch to Chinese to communicate. Okay. And then also sometimes I might unconsciously switch to Chinese to describe also. Well, you know, just bear with it. It's going to be very bilingual or whatever, okay? But I just assume that people are okay. All of you are NTU students, so your language you're very smart, okay? So shouldn't be an issue. Okay, so this is neural networks class, and traditionally we have it here because this is the best classroom to conduct this kind of coding related kind of class coursework. And just to introduce to you, this is the future classroom. It's actually 508, but I know the label doesn't say 508, but I don't know why, they should, okay? It is 508 though, all right? So it's future classroom. And then the technology here, or at least the equipment here, is that actually all these screens are usable by you. Some of you have taken courses in this room before, like my fMRI course is conducted here. But the idea would be if during the course of this program, this course on neural networks, we might want to use the screens to discuss, or you want to work with each other or discuss together. All these are smart screens, so you can do things like, just by way of an introduction. Yeah, okay. I guess I replace this later. Yeah, so these are all smart screens. So that means that you can use it for discussion. Where's the pen? Okay, and you can, and all of them are independent. So if you want to, later on, not today, yeah, you can try and play it. But over the course of this class, we might be using it for discussion or whatever. We have HDMI cables, and they are smart screens, so you can use your Wi-Fi to connect to them and all that. All right. And so just to introduce, this is the course equipment setup, and also because this we use this classroom also because they have a very nice video setup. So you can see all these cameras. All right. So every class I've set it up so that every lecture will be recorded, and usually the next day, the video, they will finish processing, and then we'll put it up on NTU Cool for this class. So if you go to the NTU Cool, if you see the modules, for each week, I will put up the previous lectures videos so that you can revise. All right. So we use technology smartly. All right. So because of that, and actually let me close the door. So because of that, if you want to use or maximize the technology of this classroom, in fact, you will need to, because we will be doing some of the coding using Google Colab, which is a Jupyter notebook. We assume everyone can get a Gmail account or has a Gmail account, so you can easily use Google Colab, which is Google's notebook format, to do your assignment, to do your projects for neural networks, and we'll talk more about that later. But so to do that, you will need to get online, all right? Just to say, the NTU SSID, the network Wi-Fi, that's weak, That's not gonna, you can see it's full strength, but actually it's fake, okay? So actually the best Wi-Fi to use, and you must use it, okay? To be effective in this classroom is to get the NTU ED room Wi-Fi. Let's see, I wonder if this one has a, oh, it should be here. Oh, this is the one on, this is not on Wi-Fi, so I can't show it to you. But if you have your laptop and you see the Wi-Fi servers, you know, the Wi-Fi connections, you should see the NTU ED-ROM connection. Please connect to that when you're in this classroom. Now, that one is not going to be you can just connect it directly. You need to register for it, and it's the same as the registration for the NTU VPN registration. So if you go to our Neural Networks NTU Cool website, click on this link here. It should open, yeah, okay. And then it should bring you to the computer center registration website. And then if you log in, there will be this thing to ask you to set up your EduRoam password. You can set it up now, actually. And I believe it will take 15 minutes to 30 minutes to activate if it's not instant, okay? It might take some time, but you need to do this. Then when you have done this, you can then log into the NTU EduRoam Wi-Fi signal here. Okay, and that's important because you're going to need that if and when we do want to connect to the screens, if not using HDMI, if you want to use the smart screen method, you need to go on this EduRoam Wi-Fi account. Okay, incidentally, this is the same computer. For those of you who don't know, this is the same place you register for your VPN and your Google account for NTU and your general password, right? Your email password as well. All right, so take some time to go to this link if you haven't already, and this will set you up with our Wi-Fi in this class. All right. Okay. Also, at any time, if there's anything unclear, you can interrupt me at any time. I'm fine that way. Okay. All right. So this class is about neural networks, and today we're going to do. I'm just going to do orientation. We're going to have a little bit of a light lecture. All right. But we'll only dive in starting next week, okay? But today we will talk about some initial concepts. Before that, however, I have to get some class logistics and the schedule and the requirements and assignments details clarified today. All right, so first things first, what is the objective of this class? Very simply, we want to learn how neural network models work. I have to clarify this because nowadays, everyone knows ChatGPT, Gemini, what else? Claude, I don't know, Grok, yeah, what else? I don't know. Okay, all these, and you keep hearing these terms, these are artificial intelligence services and tools, right? And then you hear that, oh, these are neural network models as well, okay? These are large language models, which are a type of neural network models. And then everybody comes in this class and then thinks like, oh yeah, we're going to use all these things, you know, Gemini, we're going to be able to build our LLMs or our RNNs and ChatGPT or work with that. Or we're going to use things like TensorFlow. TensorFlow is Python neural network package or library, or even PyTorch or things like that. Let me just declare here, we're not going to use any of that. Or at least we are not going to be learning or evaluating any of those models or those tools. We are actually going to be talking and building neural networks from very, very, very basic ground up levels. So that in essence, you can just write your own code. You don't need any of those Python libraries. You don't need TensorFlow. You don't need PyTorch. You can just code it yourself with simple arrays and for loops and if-then conditionals. Okay, and if you are not a coder, don't worry, we will get there slowly. Okay, but I believe most people should know a little bit about coding at this stage, right? So, but if you don't, it's fine. We will get there. But so because of that, we are not going to be relying on those ChatGPT or those toolboxes or whatever. To me,
that is a different kind of class, okay? That is about using or implementing tools that have already been made. So it's, I would say that's a more engineering perspective. Like they already have these tools and then they want to make it better, or they want to learn how to use it and all that. And so that kind of new so-called neural networks class is a more computational and neuroengineering sort of approach or focus. In this course, I am from GIBMS, Graduate Brain Mind Institute. So it's not just about that we have these artificial intelligence or neural networks tools, but we actually want to use it or approach it with respect to the original neural network, which is your brain, okay? Or a living neural network system. So really the approach here is to use the neural network modeling to better understand a biological neural network, okay? So that already puts it very different from the goal of, let's say, computer science or maybe even an engineering course, where the goal is more to figure out how the network or the model works or how to use it. Here we are using the neural network model to understand how the brain works, okay? All right? So that's why it's going to be very different, all right? So let me declare right from the start. When I say we learn the basic principles of how neural network models work, I really mean basic principles. You just need to know mathematics, okay? And neural network in the sense of what a neuron is a biological thing from the start, okay? Not a computational machine. And so the best way to learn, in my opinion, is to make your own neural network. In making your own neural network, you will have a much more fundamental, clear understanding of how neural network models work, okay? And when I say neural networks, making your own neural networks, we will have, I think, 3, your assignments and your projects you are required therefore to make 3 different neural networks, and we'll talk more about that later. And in doing that, we will kind of cover 3 different types of neuropsychological or neurocomputational functions. You will see how things like memory, how things like attention visual processing, and how things like, actually language, right, might be implemented in a neural network model, okay? This is, to me, always a very profound thing, because it's like, it's amazing, right? Your brain is a bunch of biological neurons connected together, and somehow because it's connected and the way it works, you get all these amazing intelligent functions that we appreciate in ourselves and in each other, okay? So if you sit down to think about that, that's really mind-blowing, okay? So, well, we'll try to understand that by making our own simple neural network models, okay? And that's where the Jupyter Lab and the Google Colab will come in. We will use that primarily, but I'll talk more about the interfaces later. Okay, and then it's not enough to make it. Making it is one thing, but how to test it, how to see how it works, how to evaluate it. So that would be the third step, okay? So these 3 are the 3 objectives that we want to achieve at the end of this course. Now, so that also means that it doesn't mean that at the end of this course, you will be able to program like LLMs or be an AI genius or use that thing. Far from it, actually, okay? That's not the goal. The goal here is to understand how to use neural network models to understand simple brain processes, okay? So that is very different from maybe a lot of people will have the idea about, because of ChatGPT and AI these days. This didn't used to be a problem when I was teaching this course like 10 years ago, right? Because ChatGPT was not yet so hot, not so popular, or not so easy. So everyone knew that, oh yeah, it's just simple neural networks. But then when ChatGPT came along, some people come in and say, hey, are we going to use ChatGPT? Are you going to use PyTorch and TensorFlow? And I'm like, no, that's very different, okay? So just bear that in mind. That's what we mean. Oh, okay. So I should also clarify that when I say neural networks, I approach it at a system level. In other words, it's more like a bunch of neurons, a network of neurons, modeling their basic activity and then seeing how the system works, rather than at a more fundamental neurobiological level, which is a more molecular thing, which you can also go down modeling even lower to say like I'm modeling the synapse, right? Like if I have a chemical signal and then I build up some electro potential, right? I have potentiation or depotentiation, and then at some level I get an action potential. At that level, even the molecule, you can model even all the way to that, but we're not going to do that. We're talking about neuron as the fundamental unit, and then how different neurons communicate to each other, with each other, okay? So just know that this is the level that we are talking. I say they haven't used this class in a long time. I'm going to help them to add their battery later. Wow, this is interesting. Okay, so this is the level that we're talking about. All right, any questions? Okay, all right. So then this one you can read on your own, but these are the basic models that we will be trying to build. Sorry, not number one, not the basic perceptron, but the Hopfield attractor network, the error backpropagation multi-layer multi-layered perceptron network, and the what we call von der Malsburg network, which will instantiate self-organization and unsupervised learning. Okay, if you don't understand that, that's fine. That's the point. We will work to understand that in this class. So these are the three networks and projects and assignments that we will be busying ourselves this semester. Each of these networks will take about 3 weeks each. So the format is I usually will introduce the theory of the Hopfield of each of those networks first. And when I introduce theory, we don't really need any coding or programming, okay? So that's in the first week. And then in the second week, we will I would demo the implementation of the network, right? So how, like, when we go from theory, we go to actual, how do you translate that into a coding kind of thing? And then the third week will be to evaluate. When we've implemented the code, how do we evaluate it and all that, all right? And so I will be going through this, and then the idea is you guys will be following along to be thinking about the theory, also implementing the code, and then evaluating it. And I've already put all of that up from previous years. You can see all the previous years' videos and previous years' coding examples and all that. The key here is actually to do the coding is not difficult per se. All right, it can be challenging, but that's not really the most difficult part. The difficult part is the evaluating, okay? And we will see that as we go along, because it's like after let's say we learn about a Hopfield network, then we implement it, and then so what, right? So really then that's where I hand it over to you guys that, okay, so you've evaluated the Hopfield network, try to think of how you might use it in different ways or different applications, all right? So this will become clearer as we go along in the course, but that will be the kind of the motif, the cycle, okay? Theory, implementation, evaluation, and application. Theory, implementation, evaluation, and application, and all for these three networks. The first one, the basic perceptron, is just the intro class that we will talk about next week, all right? And that one, you can use Excel to do it actually. Okay, you don't need to have a very fancy code, but this is just to show you the very basic notion of what a neural network is. Okay, when we want to code it. All right, so yeah, I've talked about it. This is to distinguish this course from courses about artificial intelligence tools, LLMs, and in a more engineering approach. Okay, prerequisites. Well, you know, you're all here. And so you're gonna need to bring your own computer. Sorry, I mean, as advanced as this classroom is, you still need to bring your own computer. Although I believe each of these screens can just go onto the internet on its own, right? And then you can open a browser, right? Yeah, I think so. Each of these screens, if you touch there's a computer icon or something somewhere in each of your screens. There will be a browser, and if you go on the browser, yeah, you know, feel free to play around with it anytime you want. Theoretically, you could go on the internet and then just use Google Colab on your own. So, you know, feel free to take one screen as you want. But I think the best way is to bring your own computer because you're most familiar with it yourself. So can I check just who is very familiar with coding? Who is like has been coding like since you were born, that kind of thing? No one, zero. No one will say that you're good at coding. Okay, intermediate level coding. Like you can do for loops. Okay, if then conditionals, all this. Okay, all right. Who is like never coded before? Like or like very basic level. Okay. Everyone? Basic. You did fMRI, you should be intermediate. Huh? If you all did fMRI, you should be intermediate. Right? Okay. Be honest with yourself. Don't be shy. Know yourself. Okay? Then if you're honest with yourself, then you can learn better. If you're shy, I don't know. That's not true either. But if you're basic or you're intermediate or you're expert, that's fine too. I just want to get a feel of the class. Okay? So as I said here, it's not a requirement. Okay? If you're not confident in programming, okay, it's a plus. Obviously, it will help you. But it is not a requirement. You'll see. We'll get there. Because the beauty of it now, and this is why I said, although we don't talk about or deal with Gemini or ChatGPT, I'm perfectly fine with you guys asking ChatGPT or Gemini, hey, how can I do this code? And then Gemini or ChatGPT will give you the code, and then you can use it, and then implement it. That's fine too. You will see how we will do it in Jupyter Notebook later on in the course. Okay, that's perfectly fine with me. But we are not using its neural network capabilities. We are using it to help us to build a model. Okay. All right, so I'm not too concerned with if you are not sure about programming in this course, because that's the point of LLMs these days, actually, is to take away the burden of having to learn how to code so much by asking the AI how to generate the code. But here, beyond just that, after it's generated the code for you, or if you try to write it yourself, that's of course the best. But even if it is the AI generating the code for you, we seek to understand what the code means. Okay, so that's part of the excitement or the interest of this course. So just rest assured, even no matter what level of programming you're at, you should be okay. But it will be good if you take this time to brush up on coding and have this in mind that, of course, after the end of this course, you should have some. If you were novice, never programmed before, you become intermediate. If you're intermediate, you can become a bit more expert. If you're already expert, well, then you can ask more theoretical questions or something like that. Okay, so everyone should move towards that direction. All right, so and in terms of the tools and the programming environment that we will be working in, it will be in Python because we will be using Jupyter or Jupyter Colab rather. Google Colab, which is a Jupyter notebook kind of setup. So Python, I have a link to Python here. I have a link to how to install Jupyter Lab in your local computer here. Or you can feel free to use R and RStudio, or feel free to even use MATLAB if you want. So I'm talking to people who are expert or intermediate. If you are already familiar with Python, R, or MATLAB, and you are comfortable, you want to keep on using it in your assignments, in the way you work, that's perfectly fine with me, okay? In this class, I will be using Jupyter, Google Colab, which is, as I said, Jupyter Notebook, to illustrate, to implement the code, all right? And so traditionally, since everyone can have a Gmail account, you can just use your Gmail account to use Google Colab as well, all right, instead of these softwares. But let me just say that it is fine if you want to use these softwares to implement your code, all right? Any questions about this? And anyone is like, if you don't, do you know, everyone knows Python, I hope. Everyone has heard of Python, right? Okay, so this is, if you want to know more, you can click into it and install. Jupyter Lab is a way of implementing Python in a graphical way, and Google Colab actually is a kind of Jupyter lab, so it runs Python. So just so you know. R also, everyone should have heard of it, right? Who has not heard of R? Okay, R is similar, is a programming environment, but it is predominantly for statistics, right? Well, it does everything, but it is well known for, it's best suited for statistics. And RStudio is the interface, okay? And then everyone obviously must know MATLAB as well. And if you are a Taida student, you can get the free campus-wide license, okay, now, so that you can use MATLAB. So MATLAB is a matrix on array coding matrix lab tool. So all of these, we use these because these languages are what we call, or these coding environments are what we call tertiary coding environments. In other words, they are not like at the machine level, not at the binary. They are a level where if you read the code, you can kind of understand, right? It is close to human language and human logic, okay? Python, R, MATLAB is functioning at that level. And critically, they deal with arrays or matrices, all right? And neural networks, you will see, really are just matrix operations, all right? And we will talk about that next week, about matrix operations. Okay, so then in terms of grading, we will be having, after every few lectures or so, I will be giving out homework tutorial exercises. I will tell you about it. Really for these, I count them as either complete or incomplete. So I won't grade them with, grading. But the point here is to get you to follow the class rather than to wait until the last minute and then try to catch up. So I prefer it, I think, and you will benefit more if you follow along after the class, do the homework tutorial so that we can then all move along together. Okay, so that's one portion of the assignments. They will count towards your grade. I think I put it there. Did I put it there? Oh, I didn't put it there. I should. Please bear with me. I will update this so that I will tell you how much percentage the homework tutorials will account for. They will account for a part, and they will all just be incomplete or complete. So if you complete, you will get the grade. If you do something, you will get the grade, okay? It may be you do something and then it's still wrong or you still haven't figured it out. It's fine. You submit something, you'll still get it. And these will just count towards one part of your assignment grade. The critical contributor will be the three main assignments, which is where you will program those Hopfield, backprop, the multi-layer perceptron, and the von der Mossberg network. You will work on these as three main projects, three neural networks that you want to apply. That will be taking up the bulk of your assignment grading, all right? So that's the grading and course assignments. Any questions about that? The rubric would be, I'll base you on quality of assignments for the three main assignments, whether your model is successful or not, and how do you evaluate it? How comprehensively do you approach it? And the homeworks are, bonus credits, as I said. Okay, I'll give more details about the breakdown maybe next week. Okay, so any questions about that grading course comment? Okay, don't worry, don't be nervous. I know people are from novice background to expert and all that. It has never been a disqualifier for this course. This course is really for people who are curious about neural networks, but never really had a chance to step into it. This is your entry course, so don't worry about the grades. You will be fine as long as you follow through the assignments and you see how we go through things. Okay? All right? Okay. So the schedule, now we talk about the schedule in a bit more detail. So last week, so nothing happened, okay? But I did put it up, and if you didn't do it, it's okay, but try to do it this week. There are two readings that you should read by next week then, okay? And that one is the Jordan 1986 chapter. I think if you click it, it's a PDF you can download, right? Does it work? I hope it works. Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right, this one is just a primer on, why does it not? Okay. This is just a primer on matrix and vector manipulation, okay? Who did, I think everyone should have done matrix calculation in high school, right? Right? High school? Who has not done matrix or vector calculation before? Anyone? 都有嘛, huh? Okay, so you know what a matrix is, you know what a vector is, right? If you didn't, this is to refresh your memory. So that's why you should read it, okay? Because I would say I did it, but then like I forget, right? So then I need a refresher. Even now, I would say sometimes I am discovering new things I didn't understand before about matrix, because when teachers teach it in high school, and when you teach it at university, and when you learn it again at advanced, graduate level, you get different pictures of the same fact. But for example, you thought, last time the teachers will teach you, oh, a vector is just, a column of numbers. And then, okay, then the math teacher teach you, okay, you can do this, you can do that with the numbers, right? And then you thought that was it. What has that got to do with life, right? But have you know, LLMs are all like that, right? And then if you think about it, this has geometric implication. It is actually a vector, a direction in space, right? And so and then you learn more and more things, okay? And then you can think of it as a function, and you can think of it as a field. So all these things come in later, all right? But just to also let you know that we don't assume that you are a mathematical expert, but you can take this time to review your mathematical knowledge, all right, and be confident about it. And that's to give you a primer or an aid on that. That's what this chapter is for. Okay, so try to read it before next week's lecture. It's not too long, and it should be easy because most people will have known about vectors and matrices anyway. Okay, more importantly is the Agarwal chapter 1. Okay, and this one will be more about the neural network. We will I will not be going through this reading in detail. Okay? I will not be going through this reading in detail, but I think at least chapter 1 and maybe chapter 2 presents some, Agarwal writes it and presents examples in a very approachable way. So for example, let me see if I can quickly, it's very hard to drag this thing. Okay. And we will talk more about it. Actually, I'll introduce a little bit of it maybe after the break, okay? But so, he'll put a picture like this, and then he'll describe like how that works, and that essentially is the neural network. And if you read the chapter 1, you will get it. You will get the basic principles, okay? So Agarwal is a good reference textbook to read. We will not use the whole textbook. We will probably only talk about chapter 1 and maybe 1 or 2 other chapters, okay? But just read chapter 1 before next lecture as a primer. We won't be relying on it so much. As I said, we are really wanting to just implement those 3 models, okay? Those have 3 papers, and we will spend a lot more time on those papers. But this one, just to give you a good intro, a good overview. Beyond what I say in class, beyond the videos you see in YouTube, and also our lecture recordings, you can have this textbook as well. So I'm giving you all these tools so that you can learn it from various perspectives, okay? So that not just me in lecture, okay? Oh, and that being said, feel free to just Google on YouTube, neural networks, show me a video on YouTube. If that helps you understand, and then you can implement it better, sure, okay? Whatever works to help you to implement your project models. Okay, so that's the 2 readings. Any questions about those 2 readings? Try to read it by next week if you can. Yeah. If you need more time, yeah, you know, just continue reading it over the length of the course. Yeah. But you know, we will have other things to read later on. Okay. All right. So specifically, what are some other things to read? Would be like when we talk about the perceptron, which will be in week 4 actually. Yeah. Uh, we will focus more on the Agarwal chapter. Yeah. But then we will have the Jupyter Notebook instance. But the first one is the attractor network, which is a Hopfield network. So if you click this, you will read the Hopfield paper, John Hopfield's paper. Okay? Just to let you know, this Nobel Prize winner recently, right? For inventing or being one of the these inventors or implementers of artificial intelligence, John Hopfield. So we are actually doing a Nobel Prize work, okay? This is his Nobel Prize work that we will be implementing in this class. So you can be proud and say, wow, I can do the same thing as a Nobel Prize winner, okay? If you can successfully do it, okay, then you're there, all right? The other Nobel Prize winner here, so you're actually doing 2 Nobel Prize winning work, because this is Rummel Hart and Geoffrey Hinton. Hinton is also the other one to get the Nobel Prize for work in neural networks, artificial intelligence. So we will be implementing that algorithm as well, okay? So give you some inspiration about the kind of thing that you're doing. And von der Mausberg is not a Nobel Prize winner, but is doing something that is also quite seminal, because the model there is trying to implement Huber and Wiesel's biological neural discovery, which is that our visual cortex has orientation, line selectivity. Like, you know, neurons will fire if you have vertical lines, horizontal lines, and all that, right? That's Huber and Wiesel's work, and von der Mausberg models that. So that, again, when you implement these 3 neural networks, you will be, you know, covering all the fundamentals of neuroscience, so to speak. All right? So that's the nature of it. And all of these have papers. We will spend much more time reading those papers. So just these 2 chapters initially are just more for giving you brief background. So don't worry too much about it, but if you can, do read it, because I think it will be helpful to orientate you to the rest of the course. So the whole schedule is there, and all the links from previous years are already there. You know, I'm just going to keep on my lecturing format, as I said, theory, implementation, application. If you are ahead, you can go all the way to the end on your own speed. You know, you can work on your own paces. Just come to lecture and then do the implementation and all that. You know, have no worries. But if you want to, you can follow along with me. If you want, you can go faster. Just don't be slower than me. Okay? Don't be like, I'm just going to wait for Josh to lecture and all that. No, if you can, preempt, read it first. Then when you come to lecture, I will be much more happy to engage. Like, if you've already seen the material and you're trying things, and then you have questions, right? Or I'll be more than happy to just, let's do that. Would be more productive, faster, and more impactful. Okay? But if you are more like, wait until I introduce, then you can deal with it. I mean, that's fine, but it won't be as exciting. Well, at least to me. Okay? All right? But no worries, no stress, right? Just carry on at your pace, but the encouragement is to try to move forward ahead of me rather than to trying to catch up with me, okay? Yeah, I'm more than happy if people are using different resources and then dealing with in this class together dynamically. Okay, and that being said, in terms of, because we are always on Friday, we have opportunities to take breaks, because we have the, Qingmingjie, and then I think there's another one. Yeah, this year, 劳动节, Labor Day is a holiday. Didn't used to be, at least for teachers, weird. Okay, and then I think that's it. Yeah, but these 2 breaks, so that's good actually. I think, because the breaks will allow you all opportunity to think through things and digest and then implement code as well. All right. That being said, I'm happy to, if you have questions out of class, you can email me, you can post in the discussion board in the NTU Cool, or you email me directly, or you can ask in class. I'm happy spending the class not lecturing and answering questions. That's perfectly fine with me as well. Okay, so you make this kind of very, very interactive and dynamic. That's really good for me. Okay, and all of that has videos, so you can these are videos from last year. This year we'll be recording also. So if I will leave the old ones there, but I'll also put the new ones so that, because sometimes every year we might cover slightly different things. This becomes a library of the courses as we teach each year, each time. Okay, but this current video links are from last year's. I believe they are YouTube. Oh, well, they are in NTU Cool, that's fine. I think I put it up on YouTube as well, but I didn't, it doesn't matter. You can use it here, or if they go to YouTube, it's fine as well. All right, so yeah, we will, over the course, go through Hotfield, multi-layer perceptron, and the unsupervised learning. And then you will see about 3 to 4 weeks per model. And then the last week, week 16, I will be talking about more general issues. And that's where we will come to the current things like LLMs and RNNs and CNNs and deep learning and all these kinds of things. We will talk about it, of course, right? We can't deny that these are out there, but I put it at the end to kind of help you see the relevance of what we will do in this course and how this fits into what you are hearing in your more daily experience, all right? So that would be the overview. Okay, so that's the schedule, that's the grading, the objectives. Let me see if I miss anything else. The biblio, you can go, those are the readings there. Oh, yeah, and also when we get to it, the Hotfield network, I have put my Git's repository instances. You can look it up there as well with the code. And because the way I learned this is actually when I was in graduate school, I took this course, and my professor at that time teaching this course was John Hummel, and so he taught us these models. And then so the way we did it in my graduate school was we actually wrote papers if we implement the model, we ran simulations, and then we wrote a paper. Each of these papers could be modeling papers, okay? But we never published it. It's just, an exercise. But they are legitimate papers. They are legitimate modeling papers. So you can see my papers are up there as well. They are unpublished work, but they are legitimate papers. And you can use them as examples in terms of application and implementations that you will deal with in your projects. Okay, I'm not sure why this is not a link, but you can copy it and paste it. It will be on the internet. Oh yeah, that's the YouTube playlist. And then these are some other links to, these are the same links as the GitLab, but these are some other links to some other neural networks that my lab does. And people might be interested in that as well. Okay, so any questions? Spend a lot of time on this admin stuff. Any questions about this? Any worries, concerns? No? All good? Happy? Okay? Okay. All right. Then in that case, what we will do is we will take a 10-minute break. Okay? And then after that, we come back. I will start the lecture, a brief orientation introductory lecture for today. We should still end earlier than usual, but I do want to talk about some theory and concepts first, and we will do that after the 10-minute break. Okay, so let's come back. It's 9:53. Let's come back at 10:05. How about that? Okay, 10:05. All right. Okay. Oh, and the restroom, for those of you not familiar, restrooms are outside over there, and then the water machine is on the left there. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, it's 10:05. Let's continue on. Yeah, I forgot to ask important thing I realized. Everyone registration for this course, is everyone okay administratively? 大家都有那个签上这个课吗？ Anyone needs 那些加签的什么什么 it should be okay, right? 你可以旁听啊，没问题，旁听是 OK。可是 if 你要旁听，那是不是有那个 email 或什么？对对 yeah because 有些 material I don't know 你旁听是不是有些就看不到 I don't know but it's better if you have the register in NTU Cool. So yeah, completely welcome to audit and then just send me your email so that I can add you into the NTU Cool. That makes sense? Huh. And then yeah, that should be it, right? Logistically 就是这样。其他人都 OK 哈 the registration no issues. Okay, all right, let's carry on. So, as I said, today I'm just going to give you some orientation introduction lecture to have the motivation and the framework for how we are going to implement and work with our neural networks. Okay, so first things first, although we say this is neural network class, and right now in this current 2026 on record, okay, neural networks has become more of a artificial intelligence engineering computational notion rather than actually what it started as way back. And when I say way back, I mean in the 1970s as at least von der Malsburg and Hopfield, these people, 1980s, 1970s, in fact even 1960s, that they were thinking of neural networks more from a more biological point of view because neurons are biological things, okay? And so to be clear, although this term now, neural networks, is a more technical and computational notion, actually what it is a biological thing that we are really concerned about. And I want to remind everyone, okay, because this is, I think, very, very important. There is a false notion that the brain works like the AI, the ChatGPT, or you must use ChatGPT, you can model it, and then you can see, oh, the brain must be like that, right? Okay. Actually, it's more like ChatGPT or AI are special or different cases of how if you have a neural network system, you can use it or it can do different functions. And our brain, our biological model is one very special instance of this big class of phenomena, all right? And the special thing about our brain is that we do it we do these computations very, very efficiently in terms of energy consumption. Okay? The biological system that we are talking about, our brain uses so little energy compared to the big data farms, how many joules, kilowatts of power that we are burning on the planet, right? When all we need is we just eat rice every day, and we can do so much. Granted, we live for, on average 70 years, 80 years. How much rice you consume over your whole life? How many joules of energy you consume over your whole life? Okay, sure, that's a lot of energy accumulated, but still nowhere compared to how much the data farms are burning every hour or even every minute. Okay, and what can it do compared to what you or I or everyone can do? Okay, so let me put that in perspective. We are trying to talk about or model or understand a biological system at heart. And really the amazing thing is it is an information processing phenomena we are talking about, and it does it in a very energetically efficient way. Okay, still, so far. Okay, we don't know what will happen next year. Maybe those engineers will come up with a more brilliant, more energy efficient kinds of implementation, and they are trying to do that. They know that. So who knows? Maybe if you study this, you might be the one to solve that problem in the future. You can develop a neural network that is as efficient as a biological one. Wow, that will, you talk about a lot of money. Okay, you will make a lot of big money. Okay, but we are trying to model a biological system, all right? And so to do that, we have to understand first, I won't go into detail. We are not here to talk about the biology in detail here, but just to, I don't assume everyone is on the same page, you know, in terms of understanding the biological system. So this is a primer today, just to orientate you. So a biological neural networks, we idealize it as individual neuronal units. So like we draw pretty pictures, we draw a circle like this, right? So this would be like maybe a neural cell body, okay, the soma, which has all the DNA and the protein machinery all centered here. And also it has its membrane around it, right? And we will talk more about that later, which it will receive chemical signals and which it also use to transmit chemical signals, okay, to its neighbor and to its environment, with its environment. And then it will send connections to other neurons, okay? So that's why we have, you see all these diagrams, you have a node or a circle, which is like a primary unit, and the neuronal unit might connect to other units. And so if you draw an arrow, you draw a line there, it represents that these two neuronal units are connected, okay? As opposed to that some units are not connected, okay? So biologically, what it means, oh, and by the way, can I check as any one of you are not familiar with neural anatomy or neurobiology? All should be semi-familiar, right? Okay, at least you know what it means when I say cell membrane, all this kind of thing, right? Okay, and DNA and molecules and proteins and why the DNA is in the cell body and all that, okay? If not, again, you can ask me after class or you can YouTube it. Very nice videos out there, okay, that illustrate it. But I'm talking about this level here where I have a neural cell and the neural cell connects to other neural cells or may not connect to other neural cells. And the terminology here is that a neural network involves a few of these idealized neuronal units, okay? And you have inputs, okay? The notion of an input stimuli or input signal or input energy, okay? Or input stimuli. It could come from outside, okay? Like the environment, the light hitting your eyes is an input, right? Or the sound hitting your ear cells are inputs. Or it could come from other neurons, right? Other neurons serves as, their output serves as input to the downstream, the later neurons, okay? So then we call these presynaptic neurons. A synapse is basically the connection between one neuron and the other. So essentially, when we have an arrow here, a line here, this is really, you could think of it as, it could be the axon of the neuron, or actually it could be the synapse between two neurons, okay? So that if that's the case, we have a synapse. Let's say if I take a microscope and I blow up this connection here, this is what one synapse might look like, and we'll talk more about that later, okay? I'll have another figure. But you have this synapse is a presynaptic neuron part of the synapse, means the earlier neuron, and then the postsynaptic neuron, okay? And then in between is the area that is where they connect is the synapse, all right? So presynaptic neuron, postsynaptic neuron, and then postsynaptic neuron might accumulate different synaptic inputs from different presynaptic neurons. And then after accumulating, it does whatever it does, it sends out a signal output to other neurons or to your action, your motor muscles or other organs, okay? And so these are what we call intra-network connections, presynaptic neurons, intra-network connections, and postsynaptic neurons. And they process input, do whatever it is they do, and then they generate output, okay? And all through the magic of how they connect using synapses. So this is very, very simplistic representation of the biology that we are trying to model here, okay? This is the level of the system. As I said, we can go deeper. For example, if I zoom into a synapse, okay? There are people that will model things like, well, if I have a presynaptic neuron and a postsynaptic neuron, okay, the presynaptic neuron inside has all these neurotransmitter, for example, very famous dopamine, right? Or serotonin, or norepinephrine, okay? These are molecules, okay, which are amino acids or proteins or whatever. And they are all kind of stored there at the presynaptic neuron part. And when some electrical stimulation comes from the cell all the way, the cell body all the way down to this synapse here, it does a lot of things. One of the things it does is causes the neurotransmitters, which are all bound in vesicles, okay, to merge, and then the molecules are released into the synaptic cleft. These molecules then connect or bind to receptors, which are also proteins, structures on the postsynaptic dendrite. And then these receptors, when they are stimulated by those neurotransmitters, they themselves cause the membrane of the postsynaptic neuron to depolarize and accumulate signal until some level is reached, and then it sends out an electrical signal down the axons, and then the cycle goes over and over again to the next neuron. Can you imagine? Okay, so essentially this is the biology that we are talking about, and you can go up to this level. Some people will model even like, what is the exact number of molecules you need before you depolarize in terms of charge, right? Because what it is you're building up charge, okay? And then at some level of charge accumulation, it spikes to become an action potential. So like some people will model even, so all these, you can read it in detail. It's in the NTU Cool, but I won't talk about it so much. But the idea is that at the synapse, what happens is that your neurons are at some baseline level of charge, about negative 70 microvolts. And then as it receives, as the synapse, the postsynaptic membrane receives more molecules, one of the things that happens is it becomes more and more positive, right? One of the effect of a molecule binding to a receptor is to cause the postsynaptic membrane to become from minus 70 level to more and more positive, and then maybe it reaches some threshold. Initially, it reaches some threshold until it becomes minus 55, and if it reaches enough, minus 55, it will spike, and you get the action potential. It becomes very positive. And then after that, it has to recover, repolarization. Feel free to Google it, read out wiki to know more about this. This is an oversimplification. Things are actually much more complicated than that. And there are also many different types. It's not just so simple, one depolarization accumulation. There are many neurons. We now know that this is just very, very too simple, okay? And it's not just one action potential. It's more like your neurons are doing like they have different frequency and different patterns. All very complicated, okay? But this is, in principle, when we want to model, we reduce it to very simple things where we go back. If we have a network of neurons, and these neurons are receiving information from other neurons, and then they decide how to send the information out, then it is essentially what I just said. It's about accumulating signals or stimuli from other neurons, and then at some level, some function happens, and then it sends out a signal. So that kind of thresholded output is, and as a function of how it is connected, that is the level that we are modeling in terms of the biological system. Okay, we're not going lower than that. We're not going to the molecular level, and we are not going broader than or higher than that. We're not going at like whole brain or whole region. We're talking about little ensembles of neural networks. Okay, so in this course, the biggest neural network that you will simulate will be in the order of, I'd say, 200 units, to maybe 300 units, something like that. Actually, the simplest neural network you will stimulate will be something like 20 units or even 10 units, or in that order. We're not talking about billions and millions of neurons like the LLM these days. They have millions of parameters, right? No, in this class, we will talk about things at most 100 few units, so your laptops can handle the computation. Okay, if we are talking about millions and LLMs, those kind of things, your laptops will burn before you can finish the computation, right? But so in this course, when we model this, that is the size, the scale that we are talking about. All right. There are pros and cons to that. There are limitations. Different things happen when you scale up. Okay. But for our purpose of our understanding, the scale that we are dealing with is sufficient, okay, to understand the computational phenomena that we are talking about. Okay, so this is the biological system that we are trying to model. Any questions? Okay, so that's just to introduce that notion to you. Okay, and so for here, this page you can go back and read up. But here I'll switch to the whiteboard, and then I'll talk to. So I will go through this more manually. Okay. So the question here is, we have the biological system that we want to model. We want to model the neural network, the biological one, and the question you might ask is, why model? Why do we even want to model? Why model in the first place? Okay, what might be our goal here? And very simply, okay, one goal is to see why model, and let's call the model X, okay? Why do we want to do this model X? We want to see how X behaves. It's not a question, it's a statement. All right, very simply, we just want to see how X behaves, right? We want to see if I have this neural network, what does it do? What can it do, right? And then what can it not do, okay? So that's it. All the 16 weeks, we are just essentially trying to see how X, whatever model we are going to implement, how it behaves. We use this term called behaves, but what it is its behavior is a computation. You compute it, right? You build a model X, and then what X does is it takes in numbers, and then it generates other numbers, like a calculator, right? 1 + 1, it will give you 2. Similarly, when we have a model, a neural network model, we give it some input, 1, and another input, 1, and then we see what behavior does it generate, which is a computation. Maybe it gives you 2. Okay? So it'll be like that, as simple as that. Very, very basic, fundamental motivation here to see how X behaves. But with a qualification, all right? Because, I just said, like, you have a computer or a calculator, we absolutely know how it behaves because it's a bunch of chips, and then it's binary gates, right? It's either on or off, that kind of thing. And then you know the parts of the computer, the RAM, the hard disk, the CPU, all these kind of things, right? But what's the difference with, in our case, a neural network, when we talk about to see how a neural network X, how it behaves? Well, one qualification is that how it behaves cannot be determined analytically. By that, I mean that you cannot use a formula, a mathematical formula, and then characterize or absolutely know what it's going to give you, right? So, for example, I can, if I have a calculator, I can mathematically express that if I put a 1 in there and I put another 1 in there, it will give me a 2. I can write it out as 1 plus 1 equals 2. That mathematical formula, I can absolutely determine what the calculator is doing. But with a neural network, it's not like I give it 2 inputs and then I can use mathematical formula to know exactly what answer it will give me. Okay? I have to run it. I have to implement this actual simulation. Then I can say exactly what's the solution it will give me. I can characterize it mathematically. I can formally describe it, but I cannot arrive at the same answer or know what answer it will give me by using an analytical or formal or function to derive the answer. Okay? So that it becomes very useful. If I can use math to get the same answer as what x will give me, then I don't need x. I just use the math. Okay? But the fact is, neural networks, you cannot use math to compute the answer it will give you. You have to use it. It has to give you its answer. Okay, so you can think about that. It's a bit subtle, but that's pretty critical. All right? So that's one thing. You want to see how X behaves so when we want to see this in a neural network sense, we do these simulations, these models, because we cannot understand it analytically. We have to evaluate it by letting it run its simulations. Okay? Simulations are required to evaluate it, as opposed to analytical, like if I derive some formula, then I can understand it. No. Neural networks is I have to run it, then I can see and understand it. Okay? So that's one qualification. The other reason is that you have, or we have, a specific hypothesis about X, or how systems with X, e.g. people, for example, behave. This will become clearer as we talk more about the models. For example, people have this phenomenon called memory. We all have memory, right? We might, as psychologists, if you're a psychological science, or even neuroscience, we might be asking the question, how do we have memory? How does our brain instantiate this phenomena that we recognize as memory? Probably doing some work outside. So you might have a hypothesis. We hypothesize that memory is when we encode, some episode or some experiences, and then later if you probe it, you give it a test item, that system will say this answer versus another answer. Say it will recognize it. It will say when it sees an object that it has remembered, when you probe it with the object, the system will say, yes, I saw it before. As opposed to it will say, no, I never saw it before. Likewise, clinically, if you have dementia, you are supposed to have seen this object before. If I probe this system might say, no, I never saw it before, which will give you an implication that something's wrong with this X system, right? It didn't remember what it's supposed to remember, okay? So that's a hypothesis. We say that X, if it's functioning properly, should give me a recognizing yes answer or a forgotten no answer, or vice versa. If it recognizes, it will say yes, right? And if it doesn't recognize, maybe it has dementia. And what that means is maybe some of the X has changed, right? Part of the model that makes X is different from a fully functioning X, okay? So something like that. You have some hypothesis about X, or how systems with X, for example, people with memory, or people with dementia, or people who have super memory, how they might behave, and you can model that. Because if you model that and you try to use a model to understand or explain that, then it will become, maybe you can use it to intervene or to address it, or at least you understand it better. You can maybe devise some better applications. All right. So any questions about this? The motivation, what we're trying to do? Okay, so simple so far, huh? Okay. Today will be very simple. It's not going to be super challenging. Okay, so let me put this in more formal terms. We have to get used to formal writing here. Okay, so an introduction to I say all this in English words, but we have to use mathematical descriptions, unfortunately, to be precise. Okay, what I mean when we have this 1A, all this in English, is that we have a variable called AI, okay? And AI can be such that, let's say I have this vector, okay, 1, 0, 1, 0, or 1, 1, 0, 0. And I call this column AI1, and I call this column AI2, okay? So AI is a vector, and it has, when I put a subscript I there, I usually mean that it is a previous state of the vector AI. So for example, AI can be in this state. Okay, AI can be in this state, and when I say, if I haven't written that, I can call this input. Okay, AI is my input, and when there's an arrow there on top, it means it's a vector. A vector is a n-dimensional unit, n-dimensional quantity. Okay, and oops. Ooh. In this case, the highlighted red part, vector AI has state 1, 0, 1, 0. What that can translate to would be, for example, AI could mean, let's say it is a cat. Okay? I'm talking about a cat. So a cat has fur. It doesn't have wings. It has a tail. It doesn't have scales, like, or gills. So, that defines a set of features: having fur, having tail, having scales, having legs, whatever. And then if you can characterize all these features, effectively, that is what we experience, or what an object that is a cat will send out these 1, 0 feature signals. Okay? So if I have a vector called AI1, I have these features of having fur, having a tail, makes a sound meow and all that. That is equivalent to the information that is constituting the notion of cat. Okay? And that's an input that I'm receiving from my visual senses. All right? But AI might change in the next instance and might have fish. Might be a fish now. So now it has eyes, it has scales, but it has no wings, it has no fur or whatever it is. Okay, so another change of state, and now I experience something different. Okay, and these could be my inputs. All right, and the question is, so I'm formalizing this, all these inputs. Okay, let me put it here actually. All these inputs are fed into a system we call X. Okay, whatever X is, we don't know yet, but let's say this system, a human being or any other system, receives these AI vector inputs, and it will do whatever it's doing, and it will give us AJ. So IJ. So I is the precedent, and J is the post effect. Okay, right? I and J. All right, and then anything in between is whatever X is doing. So for example, when, let's say, X receives AI1, it might say something like, and it will say, oh, so actually let me expand this so that, you know, it will be equivalent. Okay, so it might say something like cat, and it might say something like, actually, it might say something like dog. Okay, let me talk about this a little bit more. On the left side, AI, we have a set of features. So cat features and fish features. What we mean by this is that maybe you see some of these visual stimuli, but then after X processes these visual stimuli, it creates an output and it says cat, okay? Right, when seeing AI1, okay? So AJ1 is a vector which is characterized as 1, 0. 1, 0 means that if you put 1, 0 into a computer, the computer will play a sound and say cat, for example, okay? And then if you put AI2, the fish features, this X says dog instead. So to us, it's like, oh, wrong, okay? But then that's very interesting. Why did X, whatever X did, whatever it was doing, why did it say dog? So there's an error, okay? And then how does it integrate this? How does it learn then to say fish correctly later on in time? Okay, so I've just gone through some of a very, very simplistic cycle of what it means, what the left side means when we use English words to describe it, and then what it means in formal modeling terms. It means we have input vectors, and input vectors could be different 0 and 1 binary states, okay? And then we put it into a model X, and then it gives you output, another set of output vectors, AJ, okay? I have just translated something that is like you written in normal English into something that's more mathematical. This is so to get you used to the idea that therefore mathematically this is expressed like this, that AJ is equal to some combination, okay, some function of how X is multiplied or integrated with AI. The input passing it through some X model has some function, will give you some output. Okay? The question is, how does X work? What is X? Right? And the neural network model basically, you will see later, is different kinds of X. Okay? Can be used to give you this, if I put AI in there, I will get AJ. And then you will learn to validate whether the X that I'm trying, is it correct or not? Does it give me AI AJ mapping, or does it do something else? All right? Okay. So just very simply, I don't want to jump too far, but this should be okay for most people to know how what I just wrote here is essentially in one equation. Let's call this equation 1. I have summarized everything on the left, so many words, but I use one equation. Okay? And we will be doing a lot of that the rest of the course. Okay. All right, so let's go a bit deeper now. The question is, what is this X, right? That if I give it AI, and then I pass it through X, and then I get AJ, okay? So you will see this is very familiar. So let's say let me simplify it even further. I'm going to call this AI unit 1 and AI unit 2. Okay, so these are two neurons, and they connect to one other neuron, and this will be having, we call AJ. Okay, so we have input neurons and we have output neurons, and they are connected by synaptic weights. Okay, so each of these are vectors. Okay, such that these vectors can have values. Okay, can you understand? If I draw it, this graph, this architecture here, then I can mathematically express this in terms of matrix vector notation like that. Okay, so we call this, we have an architecture of X. Okay, if our question, if our hypothesis, if our goal was to see how X behaves, okay, and we have a hypothesis that when X receives this input, it gives this output. When X receives another input, it gives another output. Then in order to see how X behaves or evaluate how X behaves, the next thing to do is to understand the structure or the architecture of X. One possible architecture is that X is such that we have, if you have two input nodes like this, or two input units like this, and they connect to one output node or one output unit, and they are connected by what we call two weights, WI1J and WI2J, okay, to be specific, okay? If they are connected like this, then this is one possible architecture or structure of X that I hypothesize might lead to this cat, say cat, but see fish properties, but I said dog, okay? That kind of weird thing. Maybe if I model it like this, if I set up this architecture, I want to see, does it behave like that? Or maybe it behaves some other way, okay? But I have formalized my inputs, my output, and how the input and output are connected. There's other ways to do it. I can do it like this. I could say that maybe this is connected this way, right? Oh, sorry. Okay, then I have three weights. Okay, I won't put all the indices, but then it will be AI1, AI2, and then I have three weights. For brevity, I'm just going to say W1, 2, 3, and then one output. Okay? I can have many different ways. I can have more nodes. I can have, different configurations. I can have more outputs. I can do it. My X can take on any architecture as I can imagine, and I evaluate it. I evaluated that when I set this up, this kind of connection, then when I give it input, I see whether it gives me the output. Okay? That's one aspect of X, architecture of X, that when we model, we are concerned about. Ooh. Okay, all right, this box. The next thing that we are concerned about are the activation functions. Okay, so X has this architecture part that we want to model. X also has the activation function part that we want to model. So remember when I talked about the synapse, the biological model, it's like they have these neurons that are connected to each other or not connected to some other neurons, right? So that's what the architecture is, right? It may be connected to this neuron, but it's not connected. You know, it's connected here, but there's no connection there. So let me just erase it, right? It could be connected, but maybe it's not. So this is trying to model the biological reality. Maybe there are some neurons that are connected to some other neurons, but not other neurons. So that's one aspect that we are talking about, the architecture. But remember the other part, which is that at the synapse, the neurons that we are receiving their connections, they are integrating, right? There are some level of threshold, and then once they receive enough, then they do the action potential spike, right? So that is the activation function part that we also have to model. How is it that one neuron, when it receives input, how does it decide or respond, or how does it decide when it will generate an action potential? So it might be something like that. An activation function could be, so we have this input, AI input and AJ output. Just to be clear, AI are input neurons, AJ are output nodes or output states or output neurons, okay? And Ws are the connection weights, okay? Connection weights. So when we talk about activation function, we are talking about when I have and remember I said the AJ is equals to some function of the product of AI passed through W or passed through X, right, in this case, and then it gives me an AJ, right, an output. So I'm talking about when the output neuron or this later neuron, this unit, is receiving different inputs from the AI and the AJ combined, all right? When does it decide to what is the activity level of AJ as a function of the summation, okay, of the products of the weights and the inputs. So for example, I might have a function that looks like this. When the sum of WAI is below some level, okay, and let's call this level theta, okay, the value of AJ is 0. Okay, I'm going to use white here. Okay, when the sum of Wij times AI is less than theta, okay, then the value of AJ is 0. But once it reaches theta, it jumps up and it becomes 1. Okay. This is an activation function such that we can characterize it like this. AJ is equals to, oh sorry, let me write this lower. If sum of is greater than theta and 0 if it is less than, or you can put greater than equals than theta, and 0 if it is less than theta. Okay? And this is what we talked about in the biological instance, right? When the neuron is receiving all the inputs, it is accumulating signal from this input. accumulating signal from this input, accumulating signal from this input. If all the accumulated signal is still at some low level, not much signal, then this neuron is not going to do anything. It will remain at 0. But if there's a lot of activity happening, it's going to add it up, and then when it adds up enough, boom, it's going to say, yeah, something's happening, right? It's going to spike. Okay? And so this is a mathematical instantiation of that biological phenomena. Okay? Got it? All right. And we can write it out formally like this. So actually, this is an equation. Okay? That AJ is equals to 1 if the input is greater than theta, but AJ is 0 when it is less than theta. Okay? And we will talk more about these functions next week, but this is one possible activation function. Everyone can understand this, pretty easy, right? Okay, but you know, right, that's not how our brain really works, okay? So here's another possibility. The brain is not 0 or 1, right? The brain is much more analog, okay? Actually, your brain might do something like this, right? So let's draw this here. Okay, I also have a theta here, and I'm going to have this, and this is AJ again, and this is 0, and 1 is here. Actually, your brain might do something more like this, isn't it? Like a sigmoid S shape. Not so clean like 0, 0, 0, and then jump, and then 1, right? Brain is not. Brain is not so clean that way. So this is one possibility, just a little minor change in shape, making it more smooth rather than so rigid. But then what this translates to is that this is a different function then. It is not the AJ equals 1 or 0 if it is greater or less than theta. It becomes, if you know the sigmoid function looks like this. Okay, I'm using shorthand there with the W is the Wij and the AI. And then this is a constant C, okay, some other value, all right? And that's the, actually, to be clear, theta, okay? And I might have another constant K, yeah. So actually, it's minus, yeah. Doesn't matter, it's a sigmoid function. If you pass Wai here, and then you adjust theta, right? AJ will have this shape, the red line shape like that. So this is another type of activation function, okay? So for example, so to bring it back, we have different possible types of architecture. So how the neural units are connected to each other. Just like in biology, your different parts of the brain or different types of brains or different brain regions have different connections. Okay, so we can model that architecture part. But your brain might be responding in different ways. It might be doing this like more smooth activation functions. There are other types. Let me give you one more example of another type of activation function. Again, theta, 0. I'm going to say infinity here now. This is Wai, and this is AJ. Okay, you can, just to kind of stretch your imagination here. Okay, 0, 0, 0 at theta, it suddenly becomes like this. So instead of just 0, 0, 0 and then 1, or even a smooth sigmoid function, it is 0, 0, 0, and then if it is past theta, well, it depends on the size of Wai. The bigger Wai is, the bigger AJ will be. Okay? And in fact, this has a name. So this one was sigmoid. Okay, this one was binarized linear unit. Okay, it's binary and it's linear. It's linear because it is actually incremental. Okay, don't worry. This one will come back to this next week. Okay, and this one has a very famous name. Which I think if you read those papers, you will see all the time. ReLU. This is ReLU. Okay? And then there's other types. There's this one. And then there's this one. Okay? Data. This one has an interesting name. This is what we call leaky ReLU. It's leaky because it's not always 0, it's just a little bit, and then after that it jumps. Okay. All right, so there's many types. You will see it also when you read the Agarwal chapter, there's all this, and we will go through this again next week. Yeah, just to illustrate to you that the fact is we have an X. We want to understand how X works because of X receiving input, giving some sort of output. So how does X do it? Well, X consists of its architecture, which can be all these different connections. X also has how these connections stimulate each other in terms of stimulate the nodes that make up the system. And the functions could be like, you know, the binarized linear unit, the sigmoid function, the regularized linear unit, the leaky ReLU, and many other possibilities as you can dream of. For the most part, we will either use this one, okay, binarized linear unit, or this one, the sigmoid, in our course. And that is generally sufficient because most neurons do respond like this, okay, essentially, all right? These are specific cases that there might be some cases where we want to model the neurons activation function like that. But we won't be dealing with that in this course, okay? Because it's already complicated enough with the previous cases. Okay, so any questions up to this point is here we have our proposed goal, right? In regular human language, but we have translated this into a mathematical formal way, because then when we have a mathematical formal way, we can implement it in code. We can actually code it and then test it out and evaluate it. Okay? And all good? Okay, so the final thing would be for today. Oh, actually, no, there's a bit more, all right? But I will, yeah, I'll finish this up. So we have the part of the model architecture, the activation function, and I just said just now in the example, actually, right? When I show the model, the features of a fish, but then the model say dog, and then we know it's an error. We know there's something wrong. So we want to make the model smarter, right? Don't be so stupid, right? So with the model, there's another part, activation function. Let me write that as, this is part 1. And then, architecture is part 1. Activation function is part 2. And then the third part, let me change color here, is what we call the learning rule, or the updating rule. So what happens when the model produces an erroneous response? And because it is a neural network model, it is supposed to exhibit intelligence, And by intelligence, we mean that it learns, right? Okay, so it has a learning rule. It learns in a specific way. So for example, we can say that the W's, okay, the weights that determine how it takes the input AI and gives an AJ, how it makes AJ more accurate is done by adjusting the W's, right? And let's say that we might have a case where, well, the W's might operate by this very weird function here, okay? Okay, correct. Okay, so let's say I have a unit here, and this is Wi 1j, just to remind ourselves again, okay? Okay, so let me write it a bit more cleanly. Okay, all right, so this is a learning rule where the Wij is equals to the sum of 2ai minus 1, 2aj minus 1. And you're thinking like, what is this? This is so weird, okay? Let's play this out, okay? So just now let's say I have this case where I have just AI is one column and AJ is one column. Now, and then we operate only in binary terms for now. So AI, the input, can either be a 0, okay, or a 1, all right? And just to illustrate further, I'm going to put two possible cases of zeros and ones. The output then could be when AI is 0, AJ is 0 also, okay? But when another possibility is that when AI is 0, AJ could be 1. It could give an output 1. And then you'll see that if AI is 1, AJ could be 0 or 1 as well. In fact, this is what we call a logic table, okay? And you will see, if you work out, when you put this AI is 0, let me use a different color, okay? 0, 0, 1, 1, and then this becomes 0, 1, 0, 1, okay? If you work it out, can anyone tell me what are the values of Wij? So when AI is 0 and AJ is 0, what is W? When AI is 0 and AJ is 1? Nope. I think it's minus 1. Yes? Minus 1. yeah, because there's a 2 there. Okay. What about when it's 1 and 0? It's the same. Okay. And what about when both are 1? 1. Okay, notice this. What has this picked up? When AI and AJ are the same, the weight is plus 1. When AI and AJ disagree, the weight becomes minus 1. Okay? Let me put a term here, change. Okay? If you do it this way, what you are saying is when the input and the output agree, increase the weight, plus 1 it. Okay? When they disagree, dampen it, make the weight less. Okay? This is actually, we will talk about this, but this is the Hopfield networks implementation, and it is actually using Hebbian learning rule. Remember Donald Hebbian? Neurons that fire together, wire together. This is the equation that characterizes it. When two things agree, increase it. So when the two neurons are firing together, increase it so that they wire together. And when they don't, then decrease it. So this is a formal implementation of the Hebbian rule, which is one possible learning rule. Okay? So yeah, so we have the three components, the architecture, the activation function, and the learning rule, these three parts. They will make up X. And then when we put all these parts together, we can evaluate, oh, is it the learning rule that's making X have memory? Is it the architecture that's having memory? Is it the activation function? Or if I change any one of these components, how does the behavior of X change accordingly? And does it make sense in terms of how we know how human memory works? Okay? All right? So in other words, if you put all these three parts together, we will come to this notion of computational or neural computational mechanism, hypothesized. Okay, consists of the architecture, the activation function, and the learning rule or updating rule. Okay, so we have a hypothesized neural mechanism, which is the X part that consists of an architecture, an activation function, and a learning rule. But when we evaluate it, evaluate X, we ask, how does it behave? How does it perform? And we add one more part, which is that is it, this is the distinguishing notion from an engineering approach. That whenever we do a hypothesis, the aim here is that it must reflect some neurally plausible phenomena. I can always implement an infinite number of models that will give me memory, and even mimic human memory or whatever other performance, but that's not the way the brain works. That's not the way our biological system works. Okay, but and so, for instance, if that's the case, it might actually end up requiring more energy than a human brain might need to do that function. But if we were successfully able to model it in a biologically, neurally plausible way, perhaps that will be more energetically efficient, just like the human brain. That is not to say that the human brain or a living system brain is the most energetically efficient. If you go the other way around, we might be able to create an even more super efficient than the biological system, sure, okay? But then that's, again, a more engineering issue. Here we are setting the level as modeling a biological system, all right? So we can assess, we can evaluate, and I'm not going to talk too much about it, but we can evaluate it in terms of energy of X of the system, okay? For example, we can say, and there is formula for this, okay? We have, yeah. Don't worry about this for the moment. Okay, but this is the kinetic energy of when you have a model with W components, and for the possible inputs and the possible outputs, and you calculate this quantity, which is the minus half of the sum of their products, you get an instantaneous energy of the system, which lets you know how much the energy, energy the system is requiring or using or effecting, okay? And that quantifies its efficiency, all right, in some ways. Don't worry about this. We'll come back to this later on. Okay. All right, so that would be the key conceptual part that I want to introduce in this first lecture, okay? That our goal in this exercise that we will do in this course is to understand how X behaves. What we mean by X is a neural network model that consists of these three components. And we evaluate, and by testing and simulating, instantiating these three components with the examples, one example which I covered just now, okay, there'll be much more complex examples later. When we instantiate and simulate and test that, we are evaluating that, and in evaluating that, we are trying to answer, wait, is this how our brain works? And how does it work, and is this how our brain works, right? Okay, so we will be doing this over and over again in the different models, and this is the goal. If at the end of this course, you become automatized to be thinking of neural network models like this, then yes, we have succeeded, okay? Because in fact, when you think of it this way, you can apply it to ChatGPT and Gemini as well. What is its architecture? What is its activation function? And what is its learning rule? Even if as complicated a model as LLMs are nowadays, they work like that. And they can be evaluated like that as well. Okay, so we are really starting very much at the core, and if once you get this solid, you actually can, with enough time and effort, apply this to understanding more complex models in the future as well. Okay, so one final thing is that we understand the algorithm or the approach that I have outlined just now, but let's make this even more concrete in terms of when you do your assignments. Okay, I can run my I can make my model X. I can define the equations. I can put it in the code and run it and test it, which we will do. I will show you how to do it. But then, how do I report it? Okay, because in reporting, without reporting, reporting our simulations. Or studies. Reporting our studies, our simulation studies, our simulation approaches. Without reporting, all those things just exist as code and sparse concepts. But we need to combine and integrate it into a coherent report. That way, it makes the understanding more concrete, and also you can transmit this to other people, so other people can also evaluate your model or understand your model, or to understand your finding. So in other words, actually, reporting our simulations is like running an experiment, right? All of you probably run human studies or animal studies, right? Or even if it's just molecular or biological studies. You have a hypothesis, you do some background reading, you generate a hypothesis, you design an experiment, you run it, you collect data, and then you analyze the data, and then you report the results, discuss it, right? So in modeling world, it's the same. We read some previous work, what other models, what real biological phenomena have found, and we create our hypothesis. Then we design our models, we run the simulation, and the simulation gives us results, which we then analyze, and then we discuss the results and what is the implication for the hypothesis about the model, what that means. So this is the equivalent, okay? When we write scientific papers and experiments, intro, method, results, discussion. In modeling world, of models. Okay, of our modeling simulations. In modeling world, this is our framework. Okay. we will have same thing. Introduction, which will convey the motivation, the background, the motivation, and the hypothesis. Okay, so in your assignments and in your write-ups, we will have you will hopefully have this framework as well. Then, just like in the methods, we will talk about we will describe our model operation, which we will say we will have the architecture, the activation function, and the learning rule. We will describe these formulas and all that. Yep. And then we will run the simulation. Excuse me. Okay, so then we will run the simulations, and this will be like our results. Okay, in a typical experiment, we have a results section, right? So then we will have simulations. Okay, so and here we will say what was run, how, and what were the results. Okay, so it's just like our intro, methods, results section, and then finally we will have a discussion and conclusion, which same thing, you will discuss the implications, you will discuss the results and all that, so that when you write your assignments, this is a framework that you can adopt in how you write it. You must have a brief intro, you must have a description of the architecture, you must have the simulation results, and then you have a discussion on it. Okay? So to be clear also, the assignments will have more guided parts. It's not that you'll be writing all of this all the time, but I'm just giving you an idea of it. But when you do the assignments, actually we will be, I will be putting guiding questions into that. But this is something that you can take, that when the way you will answer, the way you think about it, you can think of it this way. Certainly, if you read in my Git repository, I put my papers, as I said, previously what we did is we run the models, then we write papers, right? All my papers, all the papers that we wrote for our assignments are like that. Okay, we have these, they are full unpublished papers. They are all in this format. For your assignments, I'm not going to require you to do it that way, but I do encourage you to think of things that way. The assignments that I will give you will break things down a little bit more in bite-sized pieces, more manageable. Okay? All right, so that will be it for today. I just want to convey these concepts and these formats and these ways of thinking that we will go deeper in the rest of the course, the other classes subsequently. Any questions? No? All good? Okay. Then that's it for today. I think we end a little earlier, which is good. Then next week, please do read up, as I said, the linear algebra and the Agarwal chapter. Next week I will be introducing you to the perceptron. So if in case you don't know, this is already a perceptron. This is a perceptron. Okay, single layer perceptron. And next week I will talk more about this. Today we introduced this. Next week you will see some of this coming back up. It will be familiar, but we will be going deeper into that a little bit more. Okay? So it will help if you've read the Agarwal chapter 1 especially, because that's where he will introduce the perceptron as well. Okay, and so you can come, and I'll probably talk a little bit more, but if you have questions at that time as well, yeah, I'd be happy to discuss deeper and have more interaction that way as well. Okay, so that's it for today, and yeah, have a good weekend. We'll see you next week. By the way, if people, some of you might be in the Brain Hack School course, which will be this afternoon here as well. You are welcome to stay. So what this means is I have this room all day. So you are welcome to stay here because some of you are not in the medical campus, right? You don't want to go elsewhere. You can use this place to work, and but you cannot eat here. So eat outside, and then yeah, I mean, you know, you can have some light drink. Technically, you cannot, but certainly don't bring a biandang in here and eat. Okay, yeah, eat outside. And then, but you can continue working. And as I said, you can use these screens if you want to do discussions and all that. In fact, the Brain Hack School today is orientation, but then the subsequent weeks you'll see will be more like you can use this place to do your projects and work together as well. There'll be minimal lecturing actually for Brain Hack School. But this room will be open, okay? So just to let you know, if people are doing that course, feel free to stay all day in this class on Fridays during this semester.